Welcome back to the Halo PSA Automation Runbook series with me, Joe Burns from MSP Blueprint. Today, I'm going to be walking you through 6 different ways to trigger a runbook within Halo PSA. So far in the series, we've looked at how to build runbooks, the concepts behind them, how to build some simple runbooks. But what's the point in creating an automation if you can't trigger it? We always need a trigger to start an automation and to start an integration runbook inside of Halo PSA. And today we'll be covering some of those in a little bit of detail, and we will expand during the series on further details of how to get more integrated in some of these. But for the most part, what we'll cover today should absolutely get you started and give you different ways to trigger automations within Halo PSA. Let's get started and I'll share my screen. Okay, first thing, we are going to be using this YouTube change ticket source to auto runbook, which is a very basic runbook which we created way back in the second video of the series. So all this does in terms of the action taken on this method is it simply just changes the source of the ticket to number 2, which is auto. Okay, so that's all it's doing. You will notice there's a variable populated in here. We'll talk more about that as we go through this video. So if we run through the different methods to trigger a runbook, the first simple methods that we've got are right down the bottom on the details page. I just need to save this for a second. We've got the ability to click run now within a runbook, and this will instantly run that runbook. The one thing you'll note from this, though, is ticket variables and input variables cannot be used when runbooks are started on a schedule. Same applies with this run now button. Because there is no existing context regarding a ticket number or anything else in the system, you have to, within your runbook, go and get the information that you want. So if you're looking for tickets, or if usually what the scheduled or run now are for is for periodic checks. So going through a list of invoices and doing something with them, or a list of orders, or a list of tickets or customers. So it's to basically where your runbook goes and gets information and then does something for each of those. That's typically what we see with this. And we've got the run now, but you've also got the ability to set a schedule. So you can do a start date and repeat period, selected days of the week, or a day of month and a repeat interval. If we look at the selected day, if we look at the start date and repeat period, we have got a start date and our repeat period. Most frequent you've got in the selection is weekly. So if you want something to run every day, then you would go with selected days of the week, and then you'd specify which days of the week you want the runbook to trigger. And if you want every day, you can obviously specify an end date, and it will stop running when you arrive at this end date, and trigger when you want it to start and the time you want the runbook to kick in as well. Also, you've got options like create on holidays and if it's active or not. We'll also tell you the last time. If you go into the schedule, it'll tell you the last time it was created as well. That's pretty simple, straightforward, just a regular kind of schedule for a runbook where you want to do periodic things, periodic automations with Halo. Now we'll move on to the next one, which is the event triggers. So with the event triggers, what we're looking at doing here is specifying, go in and edit, we're specifying when this automation should kick in based on the triggers that we've got here. It's very much like a rule set. So we can go and say when a new ticket is logged, for example, and when the ticket is logged with criteria, so with the type being incident, we want it to trigger this runbook. So that's a fairly simple example, but you can do various events and triggers to basically specify when this thing happens, I want you to run this runbook. Now, bearing in mind that this runbook that we've got is a straightforward, simple changes of the ticket. I will need to change this variable for a moment to demonstrate this. Change this back. So what we want for this, we want the built-in ticket ID variable. Okay, there. So we want the built-in ticket ID variable in here. And then if we change that back, let's save this, and we'll trigger this one now based on the event. So we've got a new ticket locked. So if we create a new ticket, and it's an incident ticket. So test source change. Just going to put in whatever I can for required fields. That'll do. You can see sources being logged as manual. We trigger this run book now. As soon as we create a new ticket and the new ticket type matches an incident, the run book should automatically kick in, and this source should automatically change to auto. Everything is correct and I've not missed anything. There we go. The source has changed to auto. If we jump back to our run book, we go to our log, we can see one trigger has happened, and you can see ticket number 2826, which is this ticket that we've logged, and that's that's all gone through and completed, and we can see what happened there. Okay, so that's straightforward. We're triggering based on an event. The next trigger that we're going to look at is we are going to look at an action, right? So we're going to create an action. Just going to into a new tab. We're going to tickets and then actions. And with actions, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new action, and we're going to call this change source to auto. This is the outcome description, so we're going to call it changed source to auto. And then the button name is going to just be change source. A button icon can be whatever we want. Ambulance will do. Action button. Right, and then here under action settings, we've got system use. Now, if we go into system use, we've got the ability, if you search in here, we've got the ability to send a webhook or queue an integration runbook. That's what we want to do here. So we want to queue integration runbook. Then we've got the ability to pick what runbook that we want it to trigger. So we're going to do the YouTube change ticket source to auto, right? So that's the one we've been working on. The only other thing I'm going to do is going to hide it from, we're going to leave that for now actually, and then going to on the setting that I wanted, so it won't matter, just the response. The response thing annoys me, but anyway, so that's our action and that's done. If we go into this ticket, we'll change this source back to something else. And management. We'll have a look at the runbook for a second. We'll add that action at any stage of the runbook. Change source to auto, so we're going to add that button in at any stage. Off. We've got this change source button. So currently the source is event management. This change source should trigger our runbook. Oh, I didn't do it as a quick action. I should have done it as a quick action. But anyway, run that. You can see that the source has changed to auto, and that's completed. Again, if we go into our runbook, go to our log, see it triggered again, 1914 at and ticket number 2826. So that all worked fine. So far, we've looked at run manually, run from schedule. We can run it using a rule on the details page. So when a new ticket is logged, and we can also run it as an action in the ticket as well. One more related to the ticket is that we could do it on the runbook. Sorry, not on the runbook. We could do it on the workflow. So we can do it on a ticket workflow. So for example, we look at this ticket again, change the source. Can't see that under my head. I'm just going to hide me for a second. So we're going to change the source to email, and then I'm going to go back into the workflow. This time we're going to add it as an automation step on the workflow. So currently we're at the in progress stage. The next stage is escalated. So if we go to the escalated stage, and I'm just going to add an automation. The automation is going to be a quick action, but before we do that, I do need to save it as a action. So go and do that. Tickets, actions, source to auto. This is the bit that I missed in the first place, is that we want this to be a quick action. That. And I am going to, there we go, response behavior. Okay. So now it's a quick action. We should be able to go into automations, quick actions. If this out, that will go back in. Okay, automation. And we're going to do it when the meeting conditions, when meeting the conditions through entering the step or updating the ticket. And the quick action to do should hopefully now, there we go, change source, which is our quick action. So we're just triggering an automation on a workflow stage when it gets to this particular step, and the quick action is going to be the change source. We have got the other options to do it on a predetermined number of minutes after meeting the conditions, and we can also do it based on a date field as well. So number of days before or after meeting the conditions, but it's days before a field. So with that, we can specify a date, and we can trigger this automation to run before or after that particular date. In our case, as a simple, when it gets to this step in the run book, then trigger. We could also have some additional conditions that need to be met before triggering this automation. But for the purpose of this demo, that should be fine. Right. Self back. So if we save that, save the workflow, and we go back to ticket. Yeah, okay, right. So we're at the in progress stage. We've added an automation now. When we escalate the ticket, just check the source. So the source at the moment is set to email, and we're going to just escalate this ticket. And what should happen if we escalate is it moves to that step in the workflow. The workflow should then trigger the runbook again, and the source should now change to auto at the bottom. There we go. So again, we've got an automation that's triggered, and it's run the runbook, which we be able to see on here. If we go back to our log, we can see at 1918. So this one's just triggered ticket number 2826, and that's gone through and successfully changed the source. So although our runbook is really simple, this is just more about what we can do to trigger the runbook in various different phases and stages. That's a lot of the ticket ones. The other one, which we will go into much more detail on a future video, but I kind of want to bring your attention to it now anyway, is using webhooks. So triggering a runbook using a webhook. So to do this, if we go back to the details page and we scroll down, there we go, sorry. So under runbook start access, currently and by default, it will say can only be started from Halo. So through an action, event, or workflow. What we can do is change that to be can only be started from Halo and from a public endpoint. When we change this, then we are given a URL that we can use to trigger this runbook using a post command, basically. And so we can take this URL and we can use this to trigger. Now, what I'm going to do is save that. At the moment, there's no authentication, so this can be triggered from anywhere. So you need to be aware of that when you are enabling webhook access to a runbook, anybody with that URL could trigger into Halo and start this automation. So I would recommend using authentication, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm only going to show you, and then I'm going to delete it. We've got this, so if we use RecBin online, recbin.com, I've already kind of created a very basic source. I put a ticket ID in there, which was 2825. We're currently using 2826, so I'm just going to update that. I'm going to show you how it can take that information into the runbook. and we can add and paste the URL for our webhook, and we can send this data to Halo. Now, what you will notice is if we go back in, we look at the log, all of these so far that we've triggered have all been from within a ticket. So we've had the ticket number 2826 has been available to us to use within the runbook itself. If we trigger this from a webhook, I'll do that now. This is more than likely going to fail. We just refresh our log. We can see a failure here. There's no ticket number because we're triggering this from a webhook. It doesn't know which ticket we're referring to. I've purposely obviously added a ticket ID into this post data itself so that we can send this information, but this is currently looking for a inbuilt ticket ID variable when we go to make the change. So that one has failed. So in this case, what we would need to do is we'd need to go in and update what is being sent to the method for the ticket. So we can edit the method. You can see here we've got this this ticket ID. That's a hard-coded ticket ID from the runbook itself. You can't really use that in this case because we're pulling it from a different source. I've created at the runbook level, so I've created at the runbook level a runbook variable, so called webhook ticket ID. It's a string, and the value of that is the request. So we're pulling the request and then the ticket ID. Now what's happening here is we know that it's coming from a webhook, and we know that we're going to give it the value of ticket underscore ID from our webhook value. And what we're saying in Halo is capture the request and look for the field that says ticket ID. You have to put anything in request in these triangular brackets, and you can see that within the runbook level variables, we have got the option to do request, which is based on a public endpoint or a virtual agent. We've got the ability to use ticket if it's associated to ticket, action if it's associated to an action button, asset if associated to an asset, and user if associated to a user. So in our case, we're taking it based on the runbook payload, the webhook payload, and that's why we're using request. And that is the field that we want to capture. I'm going to capture that against this variable name. With that in mind, when we go to pass it through to here, we can add that variable in. If we change this over to webhook get off. Right, so we're going to change it to that. That should get passed across because of the webhook. We've got the ticket here again. Let's change it to web this time. And we're going to go and trigger our runbook using the webhook URL from Recbin. If we just post that now, go back to the ticket, that runbook should trigger, hopefully successfully update to auto, which hasn't yet. So I think there's a problem. Have a quick look. Yeah, 1924, that failed, and it's the classic here, the double quotation mark, in terms of what it's passing across. So what we need to do is go back into our method and an exclamation point at the end of the variable, because I'm on a Mac. Quite work, there we go. So save that, save and save. Go back to the ticket, we're still on web, and then I'm going to trigger from Recmin another post with a ticket ID. This time we should hopefully see an update to the source. Second, there we go. Right, so that's triggered the runbook again, and we should see a successful log here, and that one has come in through the webhook. Now you can see that there's no ticket number, but because we passed the variable and we captured that from the request data, we were able to pass that into the ticket. Now, as a final kind of bonus education piece for this video, I wanted to talk about how if you've got something like this where you actually want a runbook to trigger both from within a ticket using the built-in ticket variable, but also potentially from an outside source like a webhook, but still trigger the exact same webhook. Now, because they're using different things, we need to somehow get the ticket ID from either source. So one way that we can do this is that within our runbook itself, we'll just edit this out, and I'll show you a few other little neat things that have been added recently into Halo as well. So if we add a step in, we're going to make this a condition, and it's going to be is webhook. Okay, it doesn't really matter which way we call it or how we do it. And we're going to make this a condition. The condition is going to be, we are looking at whether the webhook ticket ID currently has a value. Okay, so if the webhook ticket ID has a value, that is because the runbook gathered it from a request and filled it in at the runbook level for a ticket for a runbook level variable. So that's why it would have a value. So if we save that off, now I'm going to move this over here and move this to one side for a second, because we're going to just check that this is all working first of all. So we've got these two steps that come out. So if the webhook has a value, then we're going over to step 5, and we're going to say has a value. And then this is going to just be an end step. Now this is a pretty neat new feature that we've got inside Halo, which gives us the ability to put a result of success or even fail, but also write a message here back into the log. So we're going to write the webhook ticket ID variable back to the log so we can see whether it does have a value, and if it has a value, what it is. So it has a value, and then at this side, we're going to do no value. And then this is going to be an end action. And success again. And again, we're going to write in the ID. Now, you should be able to select on the right side these variables. It doesn't work on my machine on Mac, so I don't know if it's yours. But yeah, let's fill that in. Okay. So save that. And this is, I'm not going to connect it yet to the change source because we just currently want to see what's going on when we trigger this webhook. So now if we go back, got our log, the last time it completed, we go back into our webhook, re-trigger it, and then back into our runbook and see what happened. We can see it completed, status completed, and that's because I forgot to move it to a start step. So it still did that. All right, I'm going to create this as the start step. So it knows to start the runbook there. Okay, and let's do that again. Look at our log. And you can see here, we've got has a value. And in our log, we can see 2826 as the result, which is correct. That's what we'll have sent here. I mean, just for argument's sake, if I just do 2827 and we run it again, and then we go back into our results, we've got another one that says has a value, and our log now says 2827. So we're capturing the information from the webhook as a variable, as a webhook variable. So that's great, but what if we trigger it from a ticket? Because if I was to go to 2826, change this. If I go back to here and do change source and do it from a ticket, and we go back to our webhook, sorry, our runbook, we look at our run, we've got 2826 here, but we've got no value, right? So because it's come from a ticket and not our webhook, it doesn't have a ticket value that has been passed to it from the webhook. So what we can do is we can say that if it has a value, we know that the value is from the webhook. If it doesn't have a value, then we know that it's got it should have a value from the ticket. So what we'll do is we're going to disconnect these for a second. We'll just keep it just in case. So we're going to have update ticket variable. And with this, we are going to do an action and we are going to update variables. Now, the variable that we're going to update is the webhook ticket ID, and we are going to give it the value of ticket ID. Okay, so this one will, if it's been logged by a ticket, it'll have a ticket ID. We can just update the variable with the ticket ID. Okay, you can also do this the opposite way around as well. You could get the ticket variable to just take from the ticket ID and then update the webhook one. So we've got that, and if we update that, we can then pass it through to the change source, because now we've got the correct variable the change source wants in the body there. Go through again in a second. On this side, we're going to add another step, and this is going to be update ticket variable on webhook, and then action going to be update variable again, and no, it's not. We don't need that because it already has the correct variable. We don't need that. Right, okay. So in this case, we can get rid of this, get rid of this, and if condition met, if condition's met, it's already got the correct ticket number from the webhook, so we can just pass that in straight in to the change source. Okay, then let's go back into here. That looks correct. And with all that done, what we should see that is, regardless of how we log the ticket, whether we how we update this runbook or trigger this runbook, it should always know to update the relevant ticket. So we've got this 2826 currently on source email. If we hit change source within the action button, to trigger the runbook, it should know that it's ticket number from the ticket number itself, and it updates to auto, and we can see that completed. It pulled the ticket number through and it completed the change. So that's great. Now if we wanted to update ticket 2826 from the runbook, change that back first of all. And back to ticket, put this something else, and then this time I'm going to trigger it from the webhook. Okay, and then back to the ticket. See at the bottom here, source should change to auto. So we've now got a runbook, and if we refresh this, you can see that no ticket number was provided, but we were still able to update the ticket because we took it from the webhook itself. So that's how we can create a bit of a runbook that allows you to use both an inbuilt ticket number if you're doing an action against a ticket, or from a webhook source and use a ticket ID that's passed across in the body. Hopefully that's been useful, a bit of a run through of different ways to trigger a runbook within Halo PSA, and hopefully that additional context around how to trigger both from within a ticket context and outside of a ticket context, but using the same runbook, will also be useful for some of you as well. Catch me on the next video. We're going to be going through some more runbook guidance, and we will be starting to look at how to use AI within runbooks later on in the series as well. So check out that and make sure you're subscribed, because every time I post a video, it's good that you'll see those pop up as well. Trying to get through as much content as I can, at least one video a week at the moment in terms of cadence, but more whenever possible. So yeah, thanks for stopping by again. Hopefully this has been useful. Please like and subscribe and comment if you've got any questions about what we've been through today. I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.